Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Theory. On this special episode, we have Sally Jimenez from the Black Hills of South Dakota, and she had a very terrifying Bigfoot encounter many years ago. We often listen to these encounters so we can understand the Sasquatch a little better, but they are always doing something that changes our mind about their behavior. We can think from what we have heard that a Sasquatch would do this and they wouldn't do that, or they wouldn't be found in an area like this, but the truth is you just never know, and that's what's so mind-blowing about this entire topic. Alright guys, with all that being said, let's dive into our next Bigfoot encounter from the Black Hills of South Dakota. Sally, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good to
Good,
hear. Um,
Miguel.
Thank you, and I'm glad to have you on the show, and I'm glad we finally get to talk. Sally, if you would tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounter from the very beginning, please.
My name is Sally Jimenez, and I don't mind using my whole name um, because everything I'm saying is going to be the truth, and I just kind of want everybody to know so I can get it off my chest. I'm 63 years old, and it happened back in 1977. And before I die, I just want people to know that they do exist. I don't believe in them. I believe in God, but in God only. But they do exist, and I just want people whoever is going to listen to me and hear me, so that people can be warned, because it was a very scary situation for me.
Okay, so what were you doing that day? Kind of put me in your shoes. What happened?
It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and there was a snowstorm. I remember that the snow was piled high. The graders, or whatever you call them, had to scoop the snow up and make piles. And then the wind is bad here, like all of the time. And so it doesn't matter what time of year, but the wind is bad. And so the wind blew over and the snow got hard. And um, where I live is where I lived at the time was a little community, what I would call as a Native American, a little reservation outside of the outskirts of Rapid City, South Dakota. And over here we have the Black Hills, where the monument is the Mount Rushmore with the four presidents' heads. And so back in 1977, where I lived in the little community, it was like a housing project type thing, but they were flat houses, they were level houses. Well, some of them were a couple story high. And so just all over the place. We lived on what they call Pahasapa in Native American, which is Black Hills, I think. And then from Pahasapa, when you come up to the corner of LeBlanc and you go take a right on LeBlanc and you go all the way down, all the way around the curve, down the corner, and then you come to what you would call Gnushka Drive, which is, I cannot remember what that meant in Native American. Grasshopper, maybe, I don't know. I can't remember, but anyway, that's what it was called. So where we lived was up on the hill on the corner of Pahasapa and LeBlanc, and in between there was my grandma's house. And not in between. In between was nothing but a valley and like a gully. I don't know how you would call it. I wanted to go and record the picture and walk across where he walked, but they've done so much renovating to the yards that I don't want to impose on anybody. So, but you come up Good New. My grandma lived at, I think it was 2442 Good Nushka Drive. So from that corner where she lived, there was a ways, I can't tell you, maybe 300 feet to a road, main road. But coming back up to Pahasapa and LeBlanc, we lived up on the corner, and I cannot even tell you how deep that gully is, but we thought it was one of my, and I know this is going to sound funny, but we thought it was one of my uncles walking from my grandma's house up to our house because they'd been visiting from Wyoming. And he's very tall and lanky, very tall. He had to duck underneath our house to get from one room to the other. He had to duck under the what you called a doorway thing. And so we thought it was him for a quick minute. We were outside starting the car every 2 hours because my mother had it was a, it was back in 77. She had a pretty new Mach 1. I can't remember what year, but it was a bronze one. And it was a beautiful car. So my dad had gifted it to her. So we were supposed to take care of it. And she asked us to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every 2 hours to go start it up and make sure it didn't freeze over, even though it had the antifreeze and everything else that it needed, because my dad was a car person. And so even though it had all that, I don't know what us were doing outside, me and my sister. I was 17, I think she's 3 years behind me. So she was 14 and I think I was 17. I want to Google the year that we had that snowstorm because I know that that was the exact year. But so we were outside. I told my sister, "You get in the driver's seat, and I'll get in the passenger seat." And the Mach 1 is pretty low; it sits to the ground, and it sits pretty low as you're sitting there if you don't, bump up your seat and stuff. And so I bumped up my seat, and she's just sitting low, my sister, in the driver's side, and then I don't know how she saw it, but she sat straight up and she said, "Who is that?" And it was like at 4 o'clock in the morning and everything is quiet. Few dogs barking, but nothing major for the people who don't keep their dogs in the house. But um, nothing major started happening, just the moon shining bright and lighting up the whole snow through that little gully or whatever that valley thing is that he was walking up. And my sister said, "What is that?" And I was already up looking, just looking around, and I turned and she goes, "Is that Uncle Geyser?" His name, I don't, Levi was his real name, but we called him Uncle Geyser. And she goes, "Is that Uncle Geyser coming up?" And I said, "Hell no, that's not him." I said, "He's not well and he doesn't walk like that." And then I looked again and she looked again and we just screamed. He was coming so fast that we didn't even have time to climb out of the car before she came around the car and she dropped the keys in the snow. And I guess I was like, wow, I guess it wasn't so hard and country or crunchy. And she said, "No, they shoveled this part. I lost the keys." And she's screaming, and I could just hear this thing coming, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. And then all of a sudden, just like quiet, like right when he got to us, but the ground was a thumping. It was um like a drum beat is what I could explain it with. It's like a drum beat if you've been to powwows and you know how they are with the Native Americans. It's you hear that drum beat really loud. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. And she was screaming frantically looking for the keys and I just grabbed her. Oh, she told me when we got off the car, when we screamed and got off the car, she goes, "It's Bigfoot." And I don't even remember how we knew about Bigfoot. Just being movie buffs or theater buffs, my dad always took us to the drive-ins, and so we were always watching the newest flick that came out, and so maybe that's how the Bigfoot thing hit. But so she screamed out, and we jumped off the car. She came around the car. She dropped the keys, and she's on her knees looking for him frantically. And I could hear this thing coming up like swoosh, 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 and just hearing the like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, a really, really putting it, it's like strong smell. And I just grabbed her around her mouth and I said, shh, shh. And I just told her, be quiet for a minute. I whispered in her ear and she was still trying to make noise. And I, shh, just be quiet, sister. And this thing, I didn't look up right away when it did it, but it just like it made us quick stop and just, boom, boom, or somehow really loud, like, I ain't got time for you, is what I felt like he told us, I'm not here for you, or I don't know what he meant by that whole, you know, and he just kept walking. The next day, we went inside, we found the keys and we made it inside because we had to lock us out when we were in the car. So we found the keys and we opened the door and we got inside and I couldn't go to sleep till like 8 o'clock in the morning, and my mom slept till like 9, 10 o'clock. And so, um, when we told them the next day, her and my aunts and my uncle, they were just kind of laughed us off and said, "Oh yeah, well, right, you've been watching too many movies on the big screen," and I guess that's what they called the drive-ins back then. And so uh, I got up in a hurry, and when I was telling my mom all of this, I was putting my jacket on at the same time, and I said, "How long has Tommy been out there?" Which is my brother, and my dad had him a 3 or 4 wheeler. It was one of those what do you call them that you take out like where you go and stuff. Um, the four-wheeler
Like a
type.
side by side.
Yeah, yeah, like that. And so, but this was back in the 1970s, so you got to imagine what they they were, but his was fairly new. But he was my dad's boy, and my dad always worked hard all his life to take care of us kids and make sure we were all right. So um, I couldn't blame my brother Tommy for driving out there, but I ran out to see if there was any kind of footprints. But my brother had been all over that little gully with his friends. We had tons of neighbor friends that we, as young kids, they hung around, and like kids did back in the 70s, So I ran to the front of the yard, but the road was sloshed because cars been driving through. And I ran across the road from LeBlanc and on the corner of LeBlanc and Sapa to look. And my brother had already been all over there. So, I mean, this was back in the 1970s. So you got to figure we didn't really have a whole lot of city rules to deal with, with him writing that in the community. So, but trying to figure out where this thing came from is like there was nothing but flatlands back then. A couple country roads. We call them crunchy roads over here, but I think it was called um Beer Can Hill or Hamburger Hill. I haven't asked my cousin. I haven't had time to talk to anybody, but my niece was thinking they came from back there somewhere, from a portal because there's nothing but flatlands back there. And where he came through was nothing but flatlands till you got up to our place up on the hill, a little bit of a hill, and then you go past the other houses. I guess it would be in front of us because we're facing the corner. of LeBlanc and Pasapa. But so we're facing that way. We're facing a hill, and a lot of the neighbors and neighborhood people used to try to climb that hill with their cars. And we all had the old 70s cars, and the Mustangs, 65 Mustangs and stuff. So we used to try to make it up that hill. But never did I think anything about Bigfoot in them moments. And then when it all happened and I was running around looking for footprints, um, there I just looked at that hill and mountain and I was like, where is he going? Because there's flat land between there and you got quite a ways, maybe 20 miles before you get to the major Black Hills where it's nothing but forest. So I'm like 20, I don't know. It was like 20 miles. And then you think about everybody's story and you hear about their stories and how fast they move. 20 miles ain't nothing. And so I don't know. There's a lot that goes on here in South Dakota. A lot of people don't talk about it. But you get the Native Americans together and they'll tell you stories. Been a lot of sightings. All you got to do is Google it. Pine Ridge or different reservations in South Dakota. Um, we have a small town called Keystone, South Dakota, and they have a Bigfoot celebration. They did a couple years in 2020 and 2021, I think. No, it was 2018. Yeah, 2019 February. I remember now because there's a little girl that disappeared from child's home up here. And why, in God's name, and I'm sorry, Lord, but why would they put a children's home up in the middle of the hills and in the background, in the backyard? They have like a playground area, and then the rest is nothing but hills and mountains and forests all around. And how, if a child is trying to run from there, where do they think they're going to go? Um, I don't know, but I think it's been how many years now? I remembered her. But it was one of the biggest searches, they said, in the state of South Dakota, I think. And they looked and they couldn't find footprints. They found tracks or something, and then they disappeared. The tracks disappeared. And so I'm like, who's to say that Bigfoot didn't get her, and do what with her? I don't know, but she's never been found. Denard, I think her last name. Just, I cannot. I have all my stuff written down in the books, but I didn't bring them with me because I was just kind of nervous telling all of this and just wondering if I'd be able to pull it off because like I said, I'm 63 years old and I have to tell somebody that they do exist, and beware. I don't know, just beware. And um, yeah, if you just Google South Dakota, Rapid City or the surrounding areas, Keystone, there have been like reports of howling or somebody on YouTube filming the footprints they found around their campers. And the reservations, you see them going across the field, and like what person is moving that fast, and why are they moving that fast? And they're all full of wool and hair. And the one I saw is hair. It's not fur, it's hair. Um, because when he made the noise and he said, "Oh, like whatever, like I ain't got time for you." I kind of looked up just to see, and the street light and the snow and the moon was bright, and I could just see him very clearly. And his hair hung down maybe I don't know, maybe 4 inches off all the way around. The head I could not tell you. I just saw a huge body form. Um, did not get a good look at the face. Did just saw and smelled really pungent, really sour, yucky pea type. My sister won't talk about it. We kind of drifted apart, and not because of this. There's just like a lot going on with her, and she's very guarded, so she won't even. She never answered me when I texted her to let her know I was going to talk about it. So I just figure, but yeah, that's probably about all I got. I mean, I don't know. Um, oh, there is one other incident. Um, my daughter lives in Somerset, South Dakota, which is 50 miles. What that would be south of Rapid City, South Dakota. And I lived over on inside town, inside the city. So I would have to travel 15 miles to get to her place, and there's not much out there except you got the big hills out there. Now you're going to start, if you went through the forest, you get lost or whatever. So now you got all that. And in between those mountains and the quarry, there's a quarry between that and the road, the mountains and the road. And so I was coming early one morning because she had to be to work at 7, my daughter, and I still do take care of my granddaughter um, all day long while my daughter works. And she's a single mother, so she works just making it ends meet. And so my granddaughter more or less takes care of me, so she comes and we spend a day together. But before that, that was last year. I would swear it was a year ago in July. I was My daughter had she has to open the bank sometimes real early in the morning, like at 7. So I have to be there by 6:30 and 15 miles. So I have to leave by sometimes 5:36. As long as I leave by 6, I'm good. And so I was coming down the road, which is called Sturgis Road, and it comes out of Rapid City and it comes into um, Black Hawk, Little Town, and then Somerset, Little Town, but in between 15 miles. And you can take the interstate, but I don't like taking the interstate. I don't like driving fast. I'm old, so I just always took the city roads, and my kids and everybody knew me. Oh, if you're going to have her meet you at this time and time, make sure you tell her early because she takes her time driving through the city, and that's how I am. So I was driving through the back road to get to my daughter's place, 15 miles. Right when you pass and get into you pass one quarry, and then you get into a little forested area, and then you go over the little hill and you get into 2 more quarries, one on each side. And then you get into the next little town, which is Black Hawk. But you got the hills up in the background. And so I was coming, and there was a little Toyota pickup in front of me, brown. And it was early in the morning, so hardly no traffic at that time in the morning. All the heavy traffic is going on the interstate. They don't want to mess around with this little road. So we're going through this little road, and this little Toyota pickup's ahead of me, and all of a sudden something came out of that quarry, and on 2 leaps, just like boom, boom, across the road and up the hill and over into the next quarry. And the pickup in front of me, he slammed on his brakes. He stopped, but he was maybe, I don't know, 10 feet away from it when he slammed on his brakes. Like, it just scared us. I was about 10, 15 feet behind him. I was just trying to take my time and make sure I get there. And no other cars on the road, and so I slowed down behind him, and I thought he was gonna stop or say, but I guess no, that's just me. That's just me who's gonna say that they saw what they saw. And I went and told my daughter early that morning, and she goes, "Well, maybe you should write the date down and the time if you're really into all this." And I said, "Yeah, I should," and I never did. But it's been about a year ago. But whatever it was that came out of that quarry was like so on all fours. It was on all fours like a black panther. And I don't know about the other stuff, the Black Panthers or the Wolf Man or whatever he's called. And, I don't know about all them, but I do know about Bigfoot, and I did see Bigfoot. And I do know they exist because they are scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said you didn't get a good look at the face, but what can you describe from the creature? Like, what color was it? How tall? And
It
just
was
any
like a
details.
reddish, it was a reddish brown. And that's why I wanted to go through the housing area and walk that and film it so I could see how tall the corner of our house was. And my daughter said, "Well, all you have to do is Google like you want to rent a house and see how high it is, what the measurements are." But it was pretty tall. It You had the gutters that run off the roof. Maybe his eyes went right over the gutters. And so I can't even tell you what a one level house is, how tall it is with the corners out and the
Yeah,
gutters hanging out.
probably like 8 feet plus.
Uh, I would say maybe between 7, 8 feet tall. Very big, very tall because he had us stunned. We knew our uncle was very tall, and we knew him already because he'd been in our house many times, and he had to duck underneath the headway. And so we knew he was very tall. And I'm trying to think what he was. He was seven something. So he was a very lanky, tall Indian man, native man.
Okay. Yeah, I
But
always hear people say that the Native Americans were short people, but I've also heard cases where some Native Americans were actually really tall.
oh yeah, I have tall people on my side of the family. Tall, yeah. The men are very tall.
Yeah.
Women are short and
Do you think it was more like
clumsy.
6 something, or are you sure he
No,
was
I
about
would go
7?
with 7 because he was taller than my uncle when we realized how tall he was and how fast
Okay, you're
he
talking
was.
about the Sasquatch. You're not talking about your uncle, right?
Yeah, the Sasquatch.
Okay, I was about to say,
He
man, you got a
was
tall uncle.
No, he was my uncle was 7 foot something.
Okay, so he was pretty tall then. Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
he was like 7'1", maybe just right over that level of 7. That's why we always thought, you know, he was a wonder to us, and we loved him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I can't imagine
so
having that encounter and seeing this creature come at you from the flatlands, and your sister was panicking. She dropped the keys, and the creature vocalized at you guys, and you said it sounded like he
we,
didn't have time for you, like he was kind of annoyed.
yeah, yeah, like the noise like a man would make to a woman, like I was married for 36 years at one time, so kind of know that sound like, I ain't got no time for you, but in a bigger, meaner, grunting, like deep vocal noise.
Yeah, and you said you could hear like these thumps, kind of like a Native American drum beat. Was that the
I could feel
footsteps?
them. I could feel the beats on my knees because we were on our knees when I was trying to grab her and tell her to be quiet because she was trying to scream. And we fell to our knees because she said she lost the keys and she was panicking, and I'm trying to shut her up. And so I felt the thump, thump, thump like a beat of a drum. But then in up here up top, you could hear like a swish, like the wind, like, and there was no wind. It was calm. It was a calm after the storm, you know.
And was that from the
So
creature moving, the swish sound?
yeah, that's what that's. Yep, exactly.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual when the creature showed up? Like maybe like everything was kind of quieter, or I don't know how to explain it.
Everything just seemed like really quiet, like you could hear a pin drop, and I had my sister's mouth covered, and she was like whining, you know how a puppy, you know. But other than that, I couldn't hear nothing. Everything was so crisp, like very crisp, like you could slice the air.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how to describe it. Like maybe like when you have your hands over your ears, like and you can hear stuff, like how it's muffled. Did it sound like that?
Yeah, it's yeah, kind of muffled. Like it's. Have you ever watched Jumanji?
Yeah.
That beat. Do you remember that beat and the drum?
Yeah, I certainly
Kind of
do.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like that. But a feeling, a hearing, I guess, in your chest. You
Mm,
could like hear it in your chest, and then it goes to your ears. Is
yeah.
how I can best describe it.
And
But you could feel it on the ground, the thumping.
yeah, and how close
But
did the creature get to you?
oh gosh, he was like no more than 4 feet, 6 feet, just right. He was right smack there, just trying to get around our house. But you could cut. That's what the kids always did. Everybody always did. You cut catty corner if you're trying to get somewhere to the other side, you know. So we were used to people walking up
Yeah.
through there.
And how long did you see the creature? Was it like a few seconds? Was it like a couple minutes?
When we saw him in the car, I told my sister the next day it would have been better. The car sat low. It would have been better if we just put our seats back and watch him walk by because that's how tall he was. His knees probably came, if I swear, his knees probably came to the top of the Mach 1. Like he towered over the car. Like we had to, just figure he's going to come through, and that's how tall he's going to be. So before we could even do or think anything, she screamed, "It's Sus!" I think she called him. No, she said Bigfoot. It's Bigfoot. And that's when she jumped off around the car, and oh, it just, I could just see him very, very tall, just like scary tall.
Yeah, so the creature had to have seen you guys before he approached the area.
Oh yeah, he had to have seen us get off the car, and because everything was lit up. Everything. The snow was white and bright, and the moon was shining. I could see him clearly coming up, and for the quick minute when we're jumping off the car and looking at him. But I told my sister we were better off just watching him. He wouldn't have even known we were there had we just shut up, and we would have got a better look. But when she went screaming, I went screaming, and I know he heard us. I know he did. I was like, to me, in my mind, we were just going to get picked up with one hand, both of us together in our jackets, and that was going to be the end of us. And that's exactly how I felt when I was trying to shut her up. I was like, shh, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. But I know he done already heard us. He seen us because he stopped and he like, like, I don't got time for you. And so
Yeah. And what kind of impact did this have on your life? Like, how did the encounter affect you later on?
the encounter didn't affect me till just in 2020 when everything shut down and we start taking rides out in the hills and going to the waterfalls and stuff, and um traveling through the Black Hills. It did not hit me until From the time I was 17, 18 years old, it did not hit me until, and I don't know how I forgot about it. Don't, my ex-husband said, "You never told me nothing about it." Well, because at the time, me and you weren't on good terms, and so why am I going to tell you about something you already told me depression didn't exist, so I'm not going to tell you anything more than that.
Mm.
So, but it didn't have an impact on my life until 2020 when everything shut down and my daughter started taking me and my granddaughter for the ride in the hills road trip. And all of a sudden it came flashing back. So since 2020 to now, I've been like hanging on to it and like need to get rid of it just because I need people to know that I know, and I don't care what anybody knows because we all know something. But I know what I saw and I know what I smelled. I know what I felt. I know the fear. And I don't want my kids in the forest. And my daughter, just knowing, getting deep into the story with her, she doesn't even like taking those road trips anymore unless her dad or somebody is with us. And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
So Rapid City is right between the Black Hills National Forest and Badlands National Park, and on the other side of
yes,
the Black Hills, there's the Thunder Basin National Grassland. So that's a huge area there, and I mean it's right next
yeah,
to Wyoming. So
yeah.
yeah,
And there's a lot of, like I said, you just Google it and you'll pick a lot of it up. And there's actual film. People will debunk them, but whatever.
yeah, it's there's a lot of people out there that are hoaxers, but there's a lot of honest people out there that have shared photos and videos of these creatures, and it's just up to the people to
Yeah,
decide, is it real or is it fake? But we know they exist and they're out there, so some of that footage
I've
has to be
told,
real.
yeah, I've told people to, like, I went to pick up a Pizza Hut in Somerset, and I had the Sasquatch sweatshirt on that my daughter bought me, and he was like, "What's with that? You know that?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And I told him real quick cap of it. And I left him wondering. He was just sitting there looking at me after he handed me my pizza. And I left, and but I gave him a quick rap about everything, how nothing was there back in the day when I saw it. Now you got all of that Lowe's and, um, but whatever that music place is, but
Yeah. And
so
just kind of a wild question, just for my own curiosity, because I've had paranormal experiences with UFOs and aliens and
yeah.
cryptid creatures. Have you ever experienced anything like that, or is it just the Bigfoot sighting?
Um, Me, when I was at one time, I was leaving from here, South Dakota, like I told you when we first spoke, or I email or text you that I've lived here in South Dakota all my life, off and on, back and forth between here and Nebraska. And one night we had to come and pick up my sister's daughter when she was a baby because my sister was sick. And my then husband was working, so we just came to get the baby, and I was going to take care of her, and we went back to Nebraska. But there was this big strobing light up in the corner, and we got an Air Force base out here where I live now. And it was further up that way, like going into Wyoming or Montana, up that in that corner. And we started heading out, and I told my then husband, I said, "What is that strobing light?" I said, "Does a airplane do that big strobe?" And he goes, "No, I don't know. I don't know what the heck that is." But by then, um, the deer started getting heavy, really heavy on the road. So my then husband was more fixed on the road, and that thing followed us from Rapid City, South Dakota, on this side of the base here, all the way to Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And it just stayed, and no matter how much traffic we passed, nobody seemed to be fazed by it. Like, was I the only one seeing this thing? You know, um, just kind of scary. I never thought about it, never put two and two together. I don't know if it's true what some people say that once you've had an encounter with Bigfoot, they cut you, and I don't like that because I think that was when I that July last year when I seen the thing prance across the road in two strides, like boom, boom. Um, it was early evening. Well, not early, no, because it gets dark like at 8 o'clock, and I told my granddaughter, "Let's run and take the trash real quick before it gets any darker." And she said, "Okay." And two or three of the neighbors had their doors open. They had the flexi screens on them where you can attach yourself. So me and my granddaughter was walking. We got hills behind the apartments, and then across the road, maybe a mile, you got the main road, and then you got nothing but the hills. And like when I used to go to the Dollar Tree, I would just sit there if I was waiting on something, or sometimes I'd buy what I'm getting and come sit in the car. And I park facing the hills because you know how they say when the trees are shaking and the trees are moving, you could kind of see the hills if you sit in certain spots and just look at the top of the hills and see things moving. So I would sit there and I would watch it and think, where are they? Because they're traveling through here. So from the city to here, this is about where they'd be coming to get into the mountains. And that night we were taking the trash, all of a sudden, uh, a girl just screaming bloody murder, like unbelievable. And I just grabbed my granddaughter and I said, "What the hell?" And I didn't even throw my trash. I just threw it right there by the dumpster. And I said, "Let's get inside." And because we had like a maybe half a block to get from the trash can to my daughter's apartment. And um, so I got my daughter inside the apartment and I stood out there because we had a neighbor, Katie, and another neighbor, I can't think of her name right, Charisse, and a couple other neighbors. And so I was wanting to make sure nobody was in need because that was a terrible, terrible, like craziness. And the neighborhood was all quiet, like not a thing. People coming, going, but nobody was standing outside to hear what we heard. But it looked like a couple people were peeking out their windows. And I don't know what that was all about, but I just have a fear that once you know them or once you see them, and then do you give them room when you start thinking and inquiring about them? You know, I just like you fear inviting the devil in for any reason. That's how I feel about Bigfoot too. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you for sharing that information with me. And what why do you think this creature walked up to you guys? Do you think it was going to take you or your sister? Do you think
no,
something like that was going on?
what I told my cousin when I told her and her daughter is this thing was just traveling. That's the feeling and the intuition I got was it's just traveling, it's trying to get from here to there, A to B, C, wherever it's going. And that's when I told my cousin and her daughter, I said, where would it be coming from? There was nothing but flatland out there, just um, fields of whatever they plant out there, and nothing but flatland. That's all I can say. And so I didn't understand where it was coming from. And that's when my niece said, I think it came from a portal, Auntie. And I said, I don't know. But it was moving like it was trying to get somewhere. Like it was just trying to get somewhere. Didn't want to be bothered. Didn't didn't have no time for us. Didn't care. Just wanted was going from wherever they dropped him off at or whatever, wherever he came from, and trying to get to the mountains. And so when I travel, because I travel to interstate, I travel from here to there, so all the time. It's a everyday thing. So you just kind of start to look around and wonder where was he going? How did he get there? What did it take for him to get there? And then I seen that one come out of the quarry and I was like, oh, they're going through there and they're getting straight into the mountain. And I was like, okay, well, but I don't know, Miguel. I'm just still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're all speculating on what's truly going on, and you feel like the quarry had something to do with where this creature came out of, or
I
where it was
feel
going
like,
to.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, or where he was going to.
Yeah, so it was heading out of the flatlands and going into the forest. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that smell, do you think the creature just smelled bad or it had an odor because it encountered you guys?
I think maybe, I don't know. Now that I hear everybody's thoughts on what they think, I think that it was a screaming of my sister because my sister frantically screamed and cried for a quick minute till we hit the ground. And then, so I don't know if it just got mad, and, but it was a very, very ugly odor.
Yeah.
And it was like everything was quiet, there was no wind. So the smell kind of just, I don't know, stuck in your nose.
Hmm. And have you ever talked to any Native Americans around the reservations there and maybe asked them about Bigfoot?
No, I don't, because I don't, we don't go around the reservations. When my mom started bringing us here like 20 years ago, we kind of just, we were never even raised with the natives. We were raised Mexican, like my dad. And so all we knew was tortillas and beans and rice and pork chili and Scottsbluff, Nebraska is where I was born and raised. And so, well, off and on, back and forth between.
Yeah, I understand that. And
And my grandma lived here at the time, and
mhm.
I love my grandma. She's always been a big part of my heart. And she lived there at the time, and she was always visiting my mom, and she's the one who was keeping my Uncle Kaiser, who we thought it was walking in the beginning, till we realized it was moving too fast. And so,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that terrified both of you, and I can only imagine what it's like encountering something like that coming straight at you. Like all the encounters I've had, they've kind of fled away from me. Like they either walked away or
yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of shot off in the distance. So, I mean, it makes me
But
wonder
mine,
what it wanted.
he had nowhere to go because he was in between all the housing. And so where else was he going to go except straight behind me, or I guess in front of me it would have been up the hill, mountain, forest, whatever. But
Yeah. Well,
so every day I wonder, whenever I drive that route, I'm just like, okay, he got from there to there to there. And I could probably Google a map and map it out for you where I think he went till he got to the quarry area, and then
okay. Yeah, absolutely.
kind of,
If you want to send a location and I can put it up on my map and kind of give people an idea where it happened, or if you want me to keep it personal, that's fine too.
no, I don't mind doing the map. Like I said, I went for a drive over there because I was trying to take a walk through there and film it, and show where he point A to point B, and then. So,
Okay.
but
Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
No, I think I've shared about everything I can right now.
Okay. Well, Sally, I appreciate you for sharing your encounter with me here on the channel and allowing me to log it down. It really means a lot to me. And I know this encounter really affected you. And like I said, it's something that you have
Yeah.
to live with day to day, and it never gets easy. I mean, especially when it's such a
Well,
close encounter.
I want it to go away, and I keep asking God why, where'd they come from? Who are they? Why are they here? And why did I have to see one? You know, or me and my sister, why did we have to experience it?
Yeah.
And that I just don't want no curse off of it, and I just keep begging God, keep everybody safe from these things. I hear so many horror stories, and so
Yeah, absolutely. And I
it's
pray for the same thing. And I mean, it just kind of brought me closer to God because I know if those things exist, so does God. And same with the paranormal. It's
oh
like,
yeah,
if evil,
uh-huh.
something invisible that's evil can exist in my house, then for sure God is real.
Oh, there's been uh, a lot of ghosts uh, encounters that I've run into through my whole life, but that would be a whole another story.
No, I understand. And I appreciate you for sharing that with me. And
Because yeah, I they yeah, if they exist, then I know God exists because
yeah, yeah, no doubt. All
yeah,
right.
the devil could be real.
Oh, yeah,
I
without a
mean, he
doubt.
is. Yeah, he is.
Hmm. Okay. Well, Sally, I appreciate you for taking the time to speak with me today and to share your encounter with everyone. And if you ever see anything
It's
else, feel free to reach back out to me.
yeah, it's a funny kind of way, but a loving way to hear your voice. I always watch your videos, and then,
Well, I hope I helped you out a little bit. And I don't know
yeah,
how
you
much
helped
help I
me
am,
out
but I'm an ear, if
much.
that helps.
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
Very much because I needed to let go of it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And just know that God's always watching out over you, and so is Jesus, and you matter, and everything that you've gone through in your life happened for a reason. So just keep pushing
yeah,
through, and you know things will get better.
the same to you, Miguel. The same to you.
Okay. Well,
The
I
prayers
appreciate it.
for. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
If you
And
have any questions, you can get in touch with me. If I was just babbling on and on, just like,
no, you did great. I appreciate it, and God bless. And if you encounter
okay.
anything else, just feel free to reach back out to me.
Oh, I will. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye. All right, Sally, thank you so much for sharing your Bigfoot encounter with me here on Sasquatch Theory. And that was certainly interesting and terrifying at the same time. This creature came out of the flatlands and went into the Black Hills, but before it made it into the hills, it was right on you. And I'm sure you and your little sister were extremely terrified. The fact that this creature was so tall does not surprise me. Sally mentioned that the creature's eyes were about as high as the gutters on the house. With how intelligent these creatures are, it had to have known that you and your sister were sitting in the vehicle. I wonder what this creature's true intentions were, and he certainly had a sense of purpose. These creatures are self-aware, and everything they do is for a reason. Sometimes Sasquatch just simply do not care. They don't care if you're in the area. They don't care if they get caught out in the open. They don't care if you got a camera. They don't care if you have a firearm. Sometimes they just do what they do, and there's not an answer as to why. So what this tells me, someone out there in the near future is going to get that next Patty film or Ron Moorhead audio recordings, and it's only a matter of time because sometimes these creatures do not care what's going on around them, and they're going to do what they do. If you can, please like and follow the podcast. And if you have a Bigfoot encounter that you would like to share with me, please contact me sometime at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. I will admit right now things are going really slow and backed up with a lot of work to do, but if you're patient and you believe in me, I will get back with you as soon as I possibly can. Thank you everyone for tuning in today to the podcast, and it truly means a lot to me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your guys' support and everyone that's helped me along the way. Thank you everyone. Take care and be safe out there.